Gamers, how's it going? Today we're doing a tier list. I haven't done one in a while actually, and I need some content on this channel, so I figured I might as well do the type of content that everyone likes pretty much on the channel, which is I'll take tier lists where I can upset everybody equally, ideally. So for this tier list here, I'm mostly going to be focusing on the Master Duel ladder format. The point of my tier list is not to tell you really what to take into a tournament, because I think the vast majority of my audience, just like myself, mostly just plays Master Duel, in ladder. So I'm more so focused on what decks will bring you the most success in the ladder of Master Duel. This format in particular, it's pretty hard to make a tier list and pretty strange, mostly because most decks right now are piles of different engines. So it's like really hard to hone down and talk about one deck when everything's just kind of a mix of a bunch of crap. So, bear with me. I'll do my best and I'll try to explain what I mean, but a lot of the time with these decks, I'll be telling you this is that deck, but it also includes this other version and this other version, because there's like 70 different piles of different engines that generally play this deck. And the first example for that would be the best deck in the game, of course, Snake Eyes. I think in the next ban list, it's very likely that they might hit Snake Eyes in some way. Now, this in particular is Snake Eyes Fiendsmith as a Mina, but to be completely honest with you, I still think there's some good arguments to say that the Fire King Snake Eyes variant might still be just as good, if not better. The only reason that I'm not going to say that is because I don't see it in ladder ever. I haven't seen it once. I've heard people tell me they've had really good success with it, and I definitely believe it. I've seen it do well in MDC Cup 2, which wasn't too long ago, so I definitely believe that Fire King Snake Eyes is still crazy, so I could definitely be comfortable putting it right around the same spot, but I haven't really seen it in ladder, so I can't speak to that too much. As for my experience in ladder, this might be the deck I see the most. It's extremely overbearing. It is very hard to interrupt unless you open Veiler plus Nibiru can be very good against this deck, and you usually can stop them. Otherwise, if it's just one-for-one hand traps, you're most likely going to need 2 to 3, mostly 3, to even really dent their board in a solid way. I'd say it's quite toxic how this deck can not only shift from their main engine into Fiendsmith, but then they can go from Fiendsmith back into their main engine because of Beatrice and Promethean Princess. In fact, if I were to guess how they hit this deck as well as other decks on the next ban list, I think it might be time in this next upcoming ban list after the Duelist Cup to finally ban Beatrice. I'd be super open to that. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree. I think Beatrice really is going to need to go. I think it's a real issue that so many decks can just kind of combo for free off of just fog walling into Fiendsmith combo, setting up an easy rank 6, dumping whatever they need, and then making a link monster that brings it back from the grave. Any deck that has a good level 2 can also do that with a Spright Elf, which will bring us to the next deck that we're going to talk about here. I think this deck is at the top of tier 2, and that would be White Forest. So I think this deck is super crazy. Definitely a top 3 deck in the game. You see it a lot. The reason that I think it's weaker than the Snake Eyes deck is mostly due to the fact that, it's just not as consistent. It has some weird hands at times. Again, it can have awkward hands. For the most part, though, it is quite consistent. It plays through just as much interruption, sometimes even more depending on the hand. Sometimes it just loses to Drool. Sometimes it can play through it. It kind of depends on the hand for that as well. But just overall, it's just an incredibly oppressive deck going first. And again, because of the Fiendsmith engine being able to make Beatrice send Esteller to the grave and bring back Esteller with Elf, it's also way too easy for this deck to play through interruption, then go for the Fiendsmith line, and just basically go full combo after that setup. Crazy interruption. Definitely a higher ceiling, I would say, than the Snake Eyes deck, but that doesn't mean much right now. I mean, if you get fully set up with either of these decks, you're most likely winning. So yeah, White Forest, super amazing, super broken, definitely a super solid pick to go and try to climb ladder. Oh, and I forgot to put this in the top tier alongside Snake Eyes, but I do think Yubel is still tier 1 for ladder. I think it's a little bit underestimated, mostly probably because Snake Eyes is just a bit easier to maneuver thanks to the Fiendsmith and Azamina engine, kind of just making it so all paths lead to Rome, basically. But Yubel is also just super crazy. I mean, they got their Aerial Eater fusion now, so they also get some really solid plays and recursion from the grave without even needing Beatrice. So yeah, I definitely think, Yubel is in a super strong position at the moment and kind of slept on, like massively slept on, to be honest. I don't see it nearly as much in ladder, so this might come off as a bit of a hot take, but I mean, it can use the Fiendsmith engine even better than Snake Eyes in some cases. You know, it has amazing combos, amazing grind game, amazing gas. You know, it's just a great deck. Also, it can set up a negate super early and then go into its combos. Ceiling wise, also, it no longer loses to board breakers thanks to now the ability to pretty easily make Omni negate boss monsters on turn 1. So the big weakness of Yubel is also pretty much gone. You know, don't forget, going second, this deck can just slap into your biggest monster and just win. So even going second, it's really good. Honestly, if I saw it more in ladder, I might even put this above, but I don't see it very often. So it kind of makes me not want to put it super high. It's probably still Snake Eyes, but yeah, Yubel is pretty amazing right now. Next up, let's do top of tier 3. And at the top of tier 3, this one's a bit of a hot take, I guess. I'm putting Blue Eyes. I think Blue Eyes is much better than Rogue, dude. Okay, so I played a lot of Blue Eyes this season. Right now, I'm at Master 2. I've only played Blue Eyes all the way through Diamond and all the way through Master so far. Just the fact that it can play quite mid-rangey, it just makes it so a lot of the time you can play through a lot of hand traps, set up a pretty mid board, but your opponent used so many hand traps that they're on very low resource to actually beat the board that you set up. And then if they didn't and you get to go full combo with Blue Eyes, the things you get to set up at that point are even crazier, you know, with the ability to make like 2 level 12 synchros on turn 1. And if you get even more gas, maybe you'll even get like a Hieratic Seal. You know, you can search multiple Veilers, so you have a bunch of interruption that's in hand that they can't like negate with a Droplet or a board breaker. There's just so much going for this deck, and it's quite consistent with a ton of starters. So I mean, I really think Blue Eyes is amazing. Its biggest weakness really being the awkward hands. Of course, with Blue Eyes, at times you can brick. They always called it Brick Eyes, and while now it's not nearly as much of an issue, it can still happen that you get awkward hands or hands that don't allow you to go full combo, where you can still pass on more like mid-rangey, but nothing too amazing, you know? So that's the biggest weakness for it. But other than that, I mean, it really can contend with the best of them. Yesterday, I went on a 10-game win streak in Master with Blue Eyes. Yeah, a 10-game win streak. That's what got me into Master 2. So you really can't sleep on this deck. I don't think I'm overestimating it at all. I think it's really, really good. And I can't even imagine how much better this thing's going to be when we get Primite. Like, this deck is going to be crazy. I think this deck might be tier 1 when we get Primite, low-key. Like, I think it's going to be maybe the best deck in Master Duel. Maybe I'm coping, though, but we'll see. Either way, let's move on here. Let's do another deck that I'm putting in tier 2, and that would be Branded. I think Branded is still just really good. I mean, it got a little bit of a buff recently, you know, with some recent unlimits. But also just generally speaking, Branded just kind of stays good. It stays relevant even to this day. I think the popularity of Blue Eyes has also made Branded a little bit better, just because oftentimes they can just kind of set Albaz going second and wipe your whole board with Alba Lenitus. So, and it's not just Blue Eyes. There's also a Bestial hand trap control, which we're going to see later in this video, that also gets outed by a set Albaz. So, yeah, I think Branded is just kind of, again, well situated in the game. As always, a lot of gas, a lot of, you know, ways to play through interruption. And even if it, you know, even if you get your Branded Fusion ashed, you still have really solid plays in this deck. It can lose to Ash, but most of the time it's actually not losing to Ash, and it will play through multiple interruption. It also plays better into Maxi than all of the decks above it, and better into Fuolos as well. So those are all very good strengths in my opinion. I don't think it's, you know, I think the biggest thing going against Branded at this point is that it doesn't love facing Bestials, and Bestial hand traps are really popular right now. In fact, while we're talking about this, we'll just put the what I think is the 4th best deck in the game right now. I think Bestial Fiendsmith hand trap control deck is it's broken. I think this deck is crazy. I think it's a top 5 deck in the game. I think it's better than Branded. And I also think it's better than Tenpai. I think it's the best going second deck in the game, to be honest. The best blind second deck. It's a hand trap deck. Basically, every single card you draw is an interruption, which is super nasty. The things you set up are not crazy, but they generate so much advantage using like the regained draw, for example, that it makes it really hard for your opponent to keep up, because whatever they try to establish, you're just negating with hand traps. I've seen this deck a lot in ladder, and I genuinely think it's great. Whereas Tenpai, I feel, has taken enough hits that I now think it's the second best going second deck. I don't think it's the best going second deck anymore. Now, with the limitations of Tenpai, it's a lot easier to actually interrupt them properly. Like, you can actually stop them, and also there's just much lower odds for Tenpai to see a starter, to see some type of card that they can make plays off of. So oftentimes, if you get hit with someone that goes like Fulos, Maxi, or something like that, you can kind of pass on very, very little. And the odds are that they have only hand traps or board breakers in hand, and that they pass back to you, and you just win on turn 3 instead. So I think Tenpai is in a bit of an awkward spot. Now, I'm still putting it really high, because don't get me wrong, I still think this is an easier climb than a lot of decks in the game. If you're just trying to, climb to Master 1, I think you're still going to have a pretty breezy time, generally speaking, playing Tenpai, but not nearly as easy as it was before, for sure. I think it's got a lot more weaknesses now. Still crazy when it pops off, still annoying to face, but, I don't even think it's the best going second deck anymore. Also, I do want to give a shout out to Sky Striker Tenpai, which I've seen pop up here and there now that the Hornet Drones, I think it's called, the one that summons a token. The Sky Striker spell that summons a token is at 3 now. And I've seen a lot of people run that so that they can go into like Kagari, get engaged, do all that stuff. And that seems to be a pretty decent way to play Tenpai, especially since you can like swing with Hayate, send the engage. And then if you have like Kaimen, you can play Tenpai as well. You can force out a bunch of interruption with Sky Striker cards, for example, then go Tenpai combo, and you feel pretty good about it. Not to mention that Sky Striker is already good at board breaking. So yeah, I think that might be the best build of Tenpai, but I still don't think it's quite as good as just Bestial Hand Trap, Fiendsmith thing, Turbo. It's really good. I think it's a good deck. Now, we've played a lot in the tier 2 here, so I'm just going to go back to tier 3 a little bit. But we got a couple more decks in tier 2 that I do think are better than branded, so, don't freak out here. But in the tier 3, under Blue Eyes, I would put Mathmech. I think this deck is still really good. It's Cyber Slop, and it just kind of works, You just spit out the monsters you have in your hand. You run a lot of hand traps. You have a lot of interruption. If you get fully set up turn 1, the odds are that you're winning. You still lose to big blowout hand traps like, for example, Droll, depending on the hand. Maxi, definitely most of the time you're losing to. Fulos, all those decks, all those cards, those big blowout hand traps, Shifter, they all kind of beat Mathmech, but on the 1-to-1 trade, like Veilers, Ashes, stuff like that, Mathmech is super good at playing into those. So yeah, I think it's just a well-situated deck, solid, good at going second, amazing at going first. Not too much wrong with it, honestly. And I don't think it's power crept enough to not be considered tier 3. I think it's a little bit better than Rogue still. There is the aspect of Bestials, though. Bestials do hurt Mathmech quite a bit, especially for the Sigma play. But Mathmech now has a lot more gas that even if they don't get Sigma, a lot of the time they can still play. So that's like neither here nor there. That like depends, honestly, how good it is. But it's probably going to be like bottom of tier 3 for me, just because of the Bestials becoming popular yet again. And we have yet to touch Rogue, so let's just spit it out. I think Exodia is the best Rogue deck. Definitely. I think it's at the top of Rogue. It's the best stun deck in the game. It really is. I mean, that's how people are playing it. When you see Exodia, all you got to do is figure out, okay, which limited to 1 floodgate did they set after they activated Ankh and summoned the Exodia and set a board wipe. Because a lot of the time what you're contending with is a spell and trap negate, a card that will destroy your entire field, and choose your floodgates. Sometimes it's going to be Necro Valley. Sometimes, it's Dimensional Fissure. Sometimes it's there can only be one. But there's going to be a floodgate there, and you're going to have to contend with it while also playing through a spell and trap negate and a board wipe, which is not as easy as it sounds. A lot of the time, that's pretty hard to contend with, honestly. And they can even set up more depending. So yeah, I think this deck is quite good. Not to mention, the Millennium Engine is being played in White Forest. I see the Millennium Engine played in Snake Eyes. I've seen it played in freaking everything. So that could even bump it up if you wanted to argue for the engine, how good the engine is. But if we're just going for the Exodia deck, I would put it top of Rogue. I think it's really solid, and honestly, it's a good pick for climbing ladder. I think you can get to Master 1 for sure playing this deck. Next up, let's do Centurion. I still think Centurion is really good. If you want to put Centurion Blue Eyes, it's like, I think Centurion Blue Eyes is worse than other versions of Centurion that I've played, and it's definitely not the best version of Blue Eyes. It has a high ceiling for sure for Blue Eyes, but it has a lot of issues with like hand economy, where, you know, the Blue Eyes engine has to discard for wishes, the Centurion engine has to discard for the field spell. It's like pretty hard to keep your card economy consistent when you're playing the Blue Eyes version of Centurion. And so I do feel like even if we're talking about Blue Eyes Centurion, I still would put it in Rogue. I wouldn't put it up there with Blue Eyes pure. But in its own right, Centurion is still a super solid deck, sets up a really hard to outboard, can play on your opponent's turn, so you have really good plays into Max C compared to most other Synchro decks, as well as into Fulos. Into Fulos especially, because summoning from the back row doesn't give your opponent a draw, so you can actually set up quite a bit into Fulos for a very conservative amount of draws. So I do think there's a lot of good things going for Centurion. I also think, though, with the popularity of so many hand traps right now in the format, especially with handtrap.deck being around, it gets a little difficult, honestly, for Centurion. I mean, sure, they don't get, you know, destroyed by, they don't always get destroyed by Ghost Ogre, but if your opponent activates a field spell, like if you activate the Centurion field spell as your first play without having a Centurion monster on the field, it's going to get popped by Ghost Ogre. You're going to lose it. Otherwise, if they ash your Chimera, you might not be able to actually get into your plays depending on the hand you have. Like, so I do feel like Centurion engine is good and it's solid, and you probably will be able to you definitely will be able to get to Master 1 playing Centurion, but I do feel like it has some challenges that make it more of an uphill battle than other decks in the format, but it's not bad by any means. It's still super crazy. Next up, let's do Spright. It's kind of slept on a little bit, but it's also not, because it's not the best deck in the game or anything like that, but it has really good spam ability. It's really good at going second, especially with Ninja Mosquito and just being able to slap into opponent's monsters Yubel style. That's super annoying to deal with. Also, now they can play Fiendsmith. I don't know if this is like a super popular way to play it. I've seen it maybe once or twice in ladder. Generally speaking, Spright is not super popular, but yeah, they can also just, you know, make use of the Fiendsmith engine to get into their full combos super easily. Then go Elf, grab Blue, Blue grab Jet, Jet grab Starter, you know, pop off from there. So there's a lot of things going on for them. Also, they got back their Swap Frog at 3, although I'm not even sure if Spright plays Swap Frog Ronin anymore, but they could, you know, it's back. So yeah, I think it got a nice little boost with the Fiendsmith package, and even though it's a little bit slept on, I'm pretty sure if they go full combo going first, you're losing, and then going second, they are better than a lot of decks in the game. So even though they're not super popular, I thought I would include them in the list. I'll just do the one deck that I'm putting in playable, and that would be Gimmick Puppet. I don't think this deck is even Rogue. I don't think anyone's really playing it anymore anyway. Sure, an FTK, you know, it's a good FTK, solid FTK, good combo, one card combo, whatever, yada yada. But it's really not that amazing. There's a reason it's not that popular in ladder, and once you get to master, you don't really see it that much. It's fine. Again, it's playable, and I think it's possible that you'll make it to Master 1 playing, you know, Gimmick Puppet, but I think going second is going to be pretty rough for you. And even going first, it's like, sure, you have a one-card combo that's relatively safe with the field spell, but even that one-card combo can actually be interrupted pretty significantly if you get your Rogue Doll hit in hand. So yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's not terrible. Bistils can mess with it too, and Bistils are super popular. So yeah, I don't know. It's fine. Again, it's fine. It's playable. Okay, so another tier 3 deck, a deck that I think is tier 3, and possibly better than Mathmech, but it's more so bias here. I know a lot of people would put this in Rogue, and I can understand why, but I'm going to explain why I'm putting Kashtira in tier 3 right under Blue Eyes. I think this deck just gets crazy hands. Like, I don't know if I'm cursed. Almost every time I face this deck, even though they got so many of their cards limited, they always have like a starter and a way to get into their plays, set up a Rice Heart, and a Rice Heart is ultra anti-meta right now. Setting up that Xyz monster is crazy. Even if they can't set it up, they also run Dimensional Fissure, which is also really good anti-meta. They don't care that their own cards get banished under Dimensional Fissure, which is also a really big deal for Kashtira. There's just so much going into this deck kind of being like a really solid anti-meta option. It's also, the engine kind of lends itself really well to going second. That might be a crazy take. I'm sure some people go like, this is Brick Tira, it's so bad, and fair enough. Like, I'm kind of biased on this one based on like my own personal experience, but the whole list is kind of based on that anyway, so it is what it is. Next up, let's do another tier 2. I think Tearlaments is better than Tenpai and Branded. No, I'm tripping. I'm tripping. It's not easier than Tenpai to climb with Tearlament. I'm tripping. But Tearlament is still crazy. I do believe it's a tier 2 deck. I do believe that this deck is still super annoying to face, still full of gas, still super consistent. People call it a gamble deck. That's not true. The gamble is if you get to fully pop off, but you have like a default amount that you get to do off of a starter that is not gambling and is really, really good and gets you set up for the grind game, one of the best grind games in the whole game. This deck can also make use of Azamina Engine. It can make use of Fiendsmith Engine really well. Beatrice should be banned. I got destroyed by this deck yesterday, made me very upset, and I vowed that I would put the deck higher up on the tier list than I was originally going to. This deck is still just a crazy, stupid pile deck. Ban Snow, ban Beatrice, please. Okay, moving on. We're going to do Labrynth. It's tough with Labrynth. I actually really do have a hard time rating Labrynth this format. Like, I feel like it could probably be like bottom of tier 2 pretty comfortably, or like a low tier 2. Because it does still feel pretty crazy when you get everything you need set up turn 1. But it is also susceptible to hand traps, and it doesn't always get everything that it needs. And going second is a lot harder now for Labrynth, I think, than it was in prior formats. Labrynth was doing especially good when Tenpai was very, very popular, and the main deck you would face, because they knew they were going to get to go first and set up fully. Now that's not really the case anymore. I just don't know. I don't know how to rate them. If they go first and they get set up, I lose most of the time, but not even every time. Low key, Blue Eye's better, man. Blue Eye's better. All right, moving on. We're gonna do Stun and Flu. I'm putting at the bottom of Rogue. I don't even know why you would play this. Just play Exodia. It's just Stun but better. Honestly, if you want to play Stun, why not play Exodia? It's so good. It's really good. Yeah, but these decks, I mean, they're fine. They're fine stun options, you know. They're there. They're playable. I'm putting them Rogue, but it's very lightly so. Especially Flu is like more so like top of playable. But yeah, actually I'm going to leave Flu at top of playable, and we'll put Stun at the bottom of Rogue. It's barely even there. We'll put Stun at top of playable, actually. Exodia's the Rogue Stun deck now. Well, I've seen this in Master. We'll put it at bottom of Rogue. I think that's fine. I mean, literally, Stun is defined by being anti-meta. It's like the definition of Rogue. We could do Unchained. Pure Unchained is kind of back. Well, pure, no, not really pure, but what I'm saying is it's not Yubel. Unchained mixed with Fiendsmith cards is good again. They made it great again. And I'm inclined to put Unchained. It did really well in MDC Cup 2. I've been seeing it in ladder, but it still loses to the blowout hand traps. It loses harder to the blowout hand traps than Blue Eyes. There's no way that Pure Unchained is better than Blue Eyes. It's probably under Labrynth as well. I think this is a good spot for it. Tier 3, under Labrynth, under Blue Eyes. Pure Unchained is good right now. I mean, the Fiendsmith package is just really good for the deck. It adds a lot of consistency to it. It gives it the ability to play through more interruption, and it gives it some extra combos as well, you know, because sometimes you could get awkward hands with Unchained. I think it's pretty well situated right now. It did really good in MDC Cup 2. There was actually 2 Unchained decks, not Yubel decks, Unchained decks with the Fiendsmith package running in MDC Cup 2 that got to top cut or like really high placing. So yeah, so I'm including it. I think it's solid. Next up, we can do Dragon Link. It's not that good, but it's good. It's probably Rogue. Like under Centurion, above Spright seems about right. Dragon Link is good. You know, Dragon Link, they got a lot of their stuff unhit over time. They're still not like the most busted deck ever, but they have much better combos than they used to have. And it's also kind of hard to rate this deck because I've seen people run like a mini Dragon Link deck with kind of mixed with the bestial hand trap control thing, and that seemed like a solid way to play Dragon Link, but it seemed like a worst way to play the bestial hand trap thing. So I'm kind of mixed on how to even rank this deck. But it also did really good in the MDC Cup 2, so I needed to at least include it. I'm going to put it Rogue above Spright. I think it makes sense. I do think it's probably better than Spright. No, I don't. What do you mean? No, I don't. Spright is better. I mean, Spright is better going second. And going first, I'd say they're both about as, like, valid, about as good, about as consistent. Maybe this one's even more consistent low-key. Yeah, but it's Rogue. You know, I'll put it in Rogue. I'll give it some respect. I'll put some respect on that name. Next up here, we have Voiceless. Voiceless voice, probably above Spright as well. Also in Rogue. I think Voiceless voice, you know, the lack of ceiling kind of hurts Voiceless voice a bit in this format. Tearlaments yesterday against me played through, I set up, I think it was 5 interruptions, and I didn't like just shotgun them either. I really tried to calculate where I was using them, and they still played through all 5 interruptions, you know? So I just feel like Voiceless is a bit too mid-rangey for what it does to be amazing this format. But I will say I might be underestimating this deck just because I don't see it a lot. It might just be that it's unpopular, but that it's not as poorly situated as I think. It's just because when I think of the Voiceless voice setup and then I think of Snake Eyes, I'm like, bro, like, what does that even, like, you're stopping Snake Eyes. You're not stopping Fiendsmith, Azamina, Snake Eyes. You're not, with the full setup of Voiceless, like your average combo, I guess. And then there's like higher ceiling versions of this deck, but those versions of the deck are just worst decks with better boards. So I don't even think they're really in the discussion for Voiceless. I know Voiceless can run Fiendsmith, and they can do, you know, a Fiendsmith line using the Voiceless engine with the Herald, I forget her name, Diviner of the Herald, yeah. They can do the same line basically that White Forest does, where they go Fiendsmith line, and then they send the Diviner and bring back the Diviner with Elf, you know, so there's something there, but I don't think that really is enough to make this deck that crazy. I mean, you're just using Fiendsmith combo to do your regular Voiceless combo. It doesn't really add much of anything to your regular combo. I think it's fine. It's good. It's Rogue. You can make it to Master 1. Just not amazing per se. Next up, Chimera, I think, is at the bottom of tier 2. I think this deck is slept on. Major slept on. This deck is definitely tier 2. It makes such good use of the Fiendsmith package. Aerial Eater is, in my opinion, better in Chimera than it is in Yubel, but Chimera is just not seeing a lot of play. I think it's underutilized. I think it's really, really good and a solid way to get to Master 1. Plays into Maxi and Fulos way better than the other Fiendsmith decks because it doesn't actually need to get into its Fiendsmith plays at all. And the Fiendsmith cards are useful in hand for this deck because you can just like use them as fusion material. So even if you're playing into Max C, you're not like sad to see Fiendsmith stuff. You can just use it. Their biggest issue, of course, is that if you don't get to your fusion stuff, you might be having a bit of a problem because you can't really get into your plays without getting to your fusion spells, except for some of the Fiendsmith stuff, and the Azamina stuff can kind of help you too with that. But yeah, it's a very flexible deck, plays into hand traps quite well, except in some awkward hands where one negate will do it because you could not get to a fusion spell. So I think it's bottom of tier 2, but really should not be slept on. I think this deck is still super crazy. Okay, Fire King Snake Eyes I kind of talked about earlier. I don't really want to put it on the list because I don't see it at all in Master. Ritual Beast, I guess we can end it on Ritual Beast. This deck is really hard to play against, and it's also really hard to play with. It was at its best when Tenpai was everywhere. That's not the case anymore. This deck has to go second sometimes, which I hear is quite challenging. I hear it's very satisfying to go second with this deck because it's not the easiest, but it has tools for it. To be fair, I think it's probably at least above Kashtira, maybe even above Unchained, although I've seen Unchained a little bit more in Master, and Ritual Beast didn't get results in MDC Cup 2. So just because of lack of data, I'm going to put Unchained above it. But I could definitely see the argument for this deck still being above this. Maybe even above Labrynth low-key, but I haven't seen it enough. I've seen it once. It was good. I think it's a solid option. If you're a Ritual Beast player, you already know how to feel about them. And if you're not, I don't recommend getting into it. So, you know, does it matter that much where I put Ritual Beast on the list? Not really. Also, I forgot to do this. Let me add a row above here. Yes, perfect. Can't forget the Elder God tier Penguins. Still the best deck in the game. Still crushing the meta. Still, no competitive player will pick up Penguins because we all have a gentleman's agreement that if any of us play Penguins in Master Rank, everyone would play it and it would ruin the game. So thank you for spending another format not playing Penguins and respecting the gentleman's agreement. And I'll see you in the next video. Man, that was corny.